kickstart this panel discussion by asking Navin his inputs on old matrices.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you, Bharti, for introducing all of us here. So, as Janet said, basically I'm going to talk about old matrices. Let's try to understand the concept of the matrices before we go into the old and the new concept, new kinds of matrices which have evolved over the years. So, what are matrices? Matrices are basically measures of qualitative and quantitative assessment. Okay, these are commonly used by a company for assessing or comparing their operational and financial performances. So how does it work? A company decides different kinds of its matrices. It can be on an operational front, it can be on a financial front, it can be on a customer front. So these matrices are all put together in a dashboard. This dashboard is being monitored by the different levels of management. The management looks at it on a frequency basis. It can be a weekly monitoring tool. It can be a daily monitoring tool as well. And this is it's very important for the operational teams as well to know where they are heading to, in terms of their performances, in terms of them meeting the budgets. So let me come down to the different the different categories of old matrices, how it used to operate in say about 2 decades back. So broadly, as I said, there are 3 different categories of matrices. So firstly let's talk about the financial matrices. We all know these are very basics. We are talking about total sales. We are talking about operational income. We are talking about the overheads which a management is spending on a day-to-day basis. Also, we talk about sales growth. We talk about cash flows. Now, what I would personally feel is this is a kind of a post-mortem KPI because these are actually analyzed after the particular event happens. Going into the second category, it's more interesting here. It talks about the customers. So now we are actually trying to compare the organization with the industry. So now we are talking about the market share. We are talking about the company's activities or their inputs in terms of how they can grow their market share in them, And thirdly, also on the customer side, the company is looking at different complaints which are coming in. The company looks at the customer satisfaction index as well. Thirdly, and most importantly, where does the business come from? It comes when the company has the right level of candidates or right level of operational team. So here, it's more of a people-driven matrix. Here we are talking about sick leaves, how many sick leaves have been taken in a yearly basis, what are the training costs associated, what percentage or of the force which we have, how is it actually going parallelly along with the sales which we are going to achieve in a particular year. Now, looking at these matrices which have been made, basically what happens is there's a lot of temptation for amongst different companies to drive or invent their own matrices. So here what they do is they try to see their operation, they try to bespoke their own matrix, and then they will try to assess themselves. Here there's a small word of caution. What happens is sometimes we try to move away from the fundamentals, and that's where we are caught. So that's it. Basically, I just wanted to take the audience through the concept and the different categories of old matrices. Over to you, Janet.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Navin, for that quick refresher on why matrices to start with, right? Because I think it's just become a part and parcel or part of our DNA. And while we are calling it old matrices, I'm also aware that a lot of companies, a lot of industries still use many of it while trying to make it bespoke, like you said. Great. So I'm here to talk about the new models, the new business models. And I'd like to anchor this whole section in the popular blue ocean strategy that was pioneered by INSEAD professors W. Chan Kim as well as Rene Mabon. They talk about two markets in the business universe, and I know that most of us are aware of it. The red ocean or the red market is where it's existing industries. There's very clear lines on who's your competition and what are your boundaries within which the company will operate, right? And the focus is outperforming the other to get bigger market share. The blue ocean is a market creating strategy. Like what's the unknown? What can you tap into? And it's not just finding new industries. Many of the companies that have done it well have actually done it by altering the boundaries of their organization. So let me illustrate that with, say, 2-3 recent examples. And I know these are companies that all of you know and associate with. One is Amazon, right? Amazon did not look at building more bookstores. That could have been a way to go. However, they looked at building a very strong enterprise infrastructure where that many more people have access to 1 million plus books. Of course, Amazon does a lot more. I'm focusing on this category. Netflix, we all love Netflix and chill, I'm pretty sure. Started in 1997 as DVD rentals. In 2007 is when they made the shift to really making it one of the biggest online streaming channels, right? And it's about hassle-free content, it's personalized content, and they just changed the market and they tapped into something that now a lot of players are in. Then you have Uber. Uber did not look to buy more cabs and compete with existing taxi companies. What it did was create a mobile app. So these are just some of the few examples. And I know that I'm sure the people who are listening in have some examples in their mind as I'm talking through this as well. What are some of the common factors that you see in these examples? One is what a big role digitization played to drive business, right? That's how key. It's actually at the center of driving business. Second is, yes, you're trying to go to scale. That will happen through digitization, but how do you at the same time personalize it as well? And that's really what business models are about nowadays, right? The other interesting shift that's happened is that companies are looking to collaborate more, right, with their competition sometimes with diverse industries. So especially because of the pandemic, right? So airlines and telecom have signed up, teamed up. Hospitals and hotels have teamed up. Apple and Google teamed up to come together to create a COVID-19 tracking technology. And that means companies and leaders are looking more and more at infinite gain for the future. They're not being restricted and they're not really competing. And because of which you're looking at a lot more of a fluid model where you're working with that many more industries, companies, people, teams, etc. And I just want to bring in an angle on Aster DM, the company that I am in, and I had the leadership and organization development function. In healthcare, what are we trying to do? We're really trying to provide quality healthcare, and that is accessible and affordable. So yes, we have the traditional bricks and mortars. We all want to go to hospitals and clinics. I don't think that's going away anywhere. But the shift in the last 3 years has been about bricks and clicks. So we have digital health strategy as a key strategic pillar and many projects under that like digital CRM, e-pharmacy, virtual care, etc. So just giving you a real-time example of how operating in the blue ocean, working across really is the need of the hour. Now, given all of these interesting shifts, Gauri, I'm going to ask you, what are your views on the new channels, customers, and tools, please?
Yeah, sure. I think very, very good analysis and points from you and Navin, Janet. Right? Thank you so much. Let me start, first of all, by thanking and appreciating everyone for helping each other, accepting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, for accepting each other and accepting and adopting the technology during the pandemic, the new way of life, the new digital way of life, right? It is very, very important to help each other, and we did that as as a human community, right? It's phenomenal. So what happened is the adoption and acceptance led to people using the online world, online business very well, right? So we saw a lot of business happening on the online. We saw huge increase in the online business. So with this, what happened? We all know that the social media is powerful. But now we started witnessing the power of it. Right? I'll tell you some interesting stats, right? On YouTube, when I say social media, I'm primarily talking about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and all these channels, right? On YouTube, we watch 500 billion YouTube videos each day, which accounts to more than 1 billion hours of YouTube videos each day. 400 hours of video are getting uploaded in YouTube every minute. I'm coming to a very, very interesting point here, right? If somebody is watching a video on YouTube completely, right, through view, it is 23 times likely that the person will complete the action that you are targeting and you want that person to do, right, in a positive direction, right? Even if he or she is not completely watching, it is 10 times likely that he or she can actually close that in a positive way about what you're wanting him or her to do. So we understand the power of these channels very, very well, I'm sure now, right? So let me take one more example before I move to the next topic, right? On Instagram, 70% of the people look at brands. Now right? We have 1 billion users on Instagram, and 70% of the people look up at brands, and how powerful these channels are. These numbers are very, very clear. Right? And 60% of the people find out new brands on Instagram. Right? So these channels are very, very powerful, and now we started witnessing it, right? With the new way of living that we are in. And the secret is data. Right? We are having good amount of data, and we are leveraging the data well, and we are actually able to do things well. Moving on to the next point, right? On the customers, right? When I say customers, I would like to touch upon a different angle here, and not kind of a new person coming and subscribing us and doing. So what I want to give you a different section of people coming and leveraging our services as an organization, right? On that note, let me share an interesting. Let me share my screen and show you an interesting picture, which can let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is we call him as Haridas in the southern part of India. They actually come during Pongal that we celebrate annually once, Sankranti. During this pandemic, the transformation, live example from bricks to clicks, whatever Janet was telling, right? This is the transformation that we are seeing, right? This gentleman who was like this, going home to home and asking. It's an auspicious thing. He comes to home and takes some rice and all. Now they transformed into Google Pay and Paytm kind of a world, right? I started by a point telling adoption. This is a classic example of adoption that's happening in India right now or across the globe. And yesterday we saw somebody talking about business in the current world is not in the metros, cosmopolitan cities, but it is. We have to focus on the tier 2 villages and everywhere. Thanks to the technology, thanks to the human community who are helping each other to grow, right? Thanks to the companies, thanks to the leadership and everybody, right? So on that note, a different section of another section of audience, right, which I would like to bring in is we saw Janet highlighting about personalization, right? In the pandemic, what happened, right? We have elders at home. At the same time, we have people at home who may not be comfortable talking the global language English. People might prefer talking in their mother tongue. Earlier, For them, if you go and show them in Amazon, they are not comfortable, or Flipkart, or any other online medium. Right? Now, what these companies are doing is they are doing localization. They are bringing this UI in their mother tongue. Right. So in that way, we are opening up a new section of audience. Now my mom goes and does shopping online, right? My aunt goes and shops online in their local language, right? So thanks to the technology, thanks to the leadership, thanks to the digital world, this is a positive sign that I personally feel, right? We are making their life easy. So these are the new kind of customers that are actually opening up for the organizations in the modern world, right? Anyway, you always have the tech savvy people, well-educated people who actually live in the metaverse world and various other things. But this is something interesting, right? You're going into a village where people run away from the technology and they don't understand. Now we see they are accepting and doing things. The positive sign, right? Kudos to everybody who are making this possible. Thank you. So moving on to the third point, with Janet, you were actually pointing on the tools and technologies, right? I started my talk by bringing up the social media part, right? If somebody has launched a product, is launching a product or launched a product, right? And if they're going to tweet, as an organization, I'll be launching a product, people react, right? The reaction can be positive, the reaction can be negative, the reaction can be neutral. Right? It can be on Twitter, or it can be on your website, or anywhere. So what we can do is we can leverage. Many of the organizations are already doing, but I'm just highlighting one thing. We can leverage the data that we are getting and do sentiment analytics, which will help you to understand what people are talking about your product, whether it is a positive sign or a negative sign, or people are neutral about your launch. Right? So here, the technology of what we are bringing in is the modern AI and data science. Right? So the better you use the data, the better you are. So now we spoke about, in terms of technology, AI and ML, right? We also spoke about YouTube ads. It's highly important for organization to do their campaign management with focused audience, right? The effort that you are doing, and their intention is that if the ad is going to a wrong person, your efforts are going vain, right? So it's always important to choose some tools which will help you to ensure your ad is actually going to the right person. Okay, so these, you should choose tools in such a way. Thanks to technology, digital marketing, and again the data world, AI and ML, right? So we should choose tools in such a way that the ads reach the right person. And beyond this, the modern technologies like AR, VR, metaverse, blockchain, and the cloud. So depending upon the business, organization should start, if they are not starting, right, or start using the right technology for their organization, right? And it's very, very important to choose right technology and right tool. Otherwise, it might lead into problems. I will also tell some stats before I actually conclude. The encouraging part here is we saw how people are accepting the digital transformation. I've actually taken some very rare examples. Anyway, you have all the technology people who do that. I actually shown you a Haridas who is in a village who doesn't even understand what technology is, and we spoke about localization, right? So before I conclude, let me give you some important stats as per Gartner. What's happening in the digital transformation? 72% of the digital business transformation missed revenue expectation. Right? I'm again telling 72% of the digital business transformation missed revenue expectation. 67% of the digital business investment missed profit expectations. 76% of the CFOs report lagging ROI in digital technology investment, right? Lagging ROI in digital technology investments. So the questions that the organizations can ask to themselves: are we leveraging the data well? Are we effectively using the data well, right? Are we choosing the right technology, right? Are we having the, again, we need people, right? Are we having the right people in place, right? So I think this is some of the questions which they can actually ask, and then tune their ambitions to the modern KPIs, right? On that note, I'll go on pause. Janet, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gauri. I know how recently on a trip to Bangalore, how I was judged by cab drivers and vegetable vendors because I didn't have Google Pay. I'm based out of Dubai, and Nestle use Google Pay. So really, our customers are anywhere and everywhere around us, and we need to be so mindful of it. And I know that I'm speaking on behalf of many people that the picture of Gouriprasad and his ox will stay in our minds, maybe for our next strategic or brainstorming session as well. Okay, great. So Navin, I'm going to ask you to share now your thoughts on new KPIs. What's the way forward? And maybe even some of what's already happening.
Sure, Janet. Thank you so much. And those were really good examples to actually think about. Uh, Now, I want to actually talk about those new matrices which are coming in. So, we spoke about very fundamental kind of matrices where we are talking about sales numbers, we are talking about operational profit, and those kind of stuff. But now, let us look at the new ones. So, I'm just trying to do a small comparison basically on the old and new. If you look at the new matrices. So we had we were talking about sales. Now what are we talking about? We are talking about the customer lifetime value. So companies are basically not look they are definitely looking at number of customers here, but they are also looking at a particular customer who can be their customer for a lifetime. So they are trying to assess the lifetime value of a particular customer who who would be normally loyal to my company. Of course, that comes with a lot of disruptive technologies which are coming in as well. So I will always presume that my company is standing good with those kind of disruptive technologies and trying to take over the market even with those things happening. Second thing is about the segmentation. Before, the companies were looking at a kind of a segmentation where they were targeting a particular age group or a particular profession group that would actually come for my product. But now we are looking at micro segmentation. So what do you mean by this? They're actually targeting that particular class of customer, or that customer which they know that the conversion would be a better one rather than going out right in the open and trying to target all the customers. A very good example for this is, before we used to have this mass messaging concept where companies were just sending around millions and millions of texts to all the customers. But now if you see, there's a lot of personalization which is happening. I was just a small example here which I came across. uh, Say for a hospital. So I actually, I had taken my mother for a small BP test, and after 2 months I got a reminder from the same unit saying that it's time for your second BP test. So this is how they are targeting those customers, and this is something which they know that definitely it would work well, because it's a kind of a reminder for my health. So that's how it is moving. Again, now the companies have actually started to listen about what the customer wants, rather than just pushing the products to them what they would like to. They want to understand from the customer what is the customer looking at me at, and then that's how they will try to change their product line or adapt to what the customer requires. Also, if you see, before, a lot of companies were talking about their ratings in the market and all that stuff. That has actually moved to a kind of a brand ambassador concept. So now we see all these organizations flaunting their own brand ambassadors whom people actually follow. So that is this is what I talk about. It's a shift from the old to the new, how the companies are actually dealing with the new. Let me talk about just a couple of industries, which excite me more basically. So I come from a hospital and a manufacturing background. So basically, I want to talk about the hospital industry, which is of course one of the hot selling topics nowadays. So let's talk about the same three parts of those KPIs, or the three forms of those KPIs, how it was before and how it is now. So when we spoke about the financial KPIs, we were talking about sales, we were talking about growth, etc. Now what are we looking at? Now, for example, a hospital is looking at what is the kind of average treatment cost the entity is going to spend on a particular patient, rather than just looking at the sales targets and those things. Secondly, they're so keen on the insurance processing time, because virtually every patient who comes into my hospital is just looking at the processing time. The insurance would take, I have my insurance policy, it should not take too much time for the hospital to process my request for me to get into the kind of treatment which I look at. Let me talk about the second KPI block. It's about the operational level KPI. Now you're looking at a particular function. Say, for example, if you're talking about a hospital, you have the IPDs. So what does the company actually, what does the hospital look at? They want to look at the occupancy rates for these, the number of beds they have. Yeah, it is very much similar to a hotel industry, but yes, again, the hospital industry also looks at the occupancy. So if it's a 300 bedded hospital, they would definitely want their occupancy to be high, where as compared to the other hospitals. Second KPI would be talking about the patient conversion rates. So if I have n number of patients coming in for an OPD service, I would, if they require, of course, if they require further treatment in an IPD, I would like them to stay with me rather than look for an opinion from me or a second opinion from me and just go into another setup. So that conversion rates are very, very closely followed by these entities, where they, if there is a requirement, then definitely they would like the patient to be with them. Thirdly, there is the other important cost for this operation is the medical equipment or the maintenance. Previously they were more generistic at an overall operational cost perspective, but now we are getting into those kind of medical equipments, how they are maintained, how much more you can get out of those those equipments. Lastly, I'll come to the third section, which is a very important section. That's about the quality or the people, the people side of the business. Here actually we are so what is my who are my customers? My customers are my patients here. So we are looking at patient wait time. I would not like a patient to who has come, say for example, an OPD service. I would not like him to be there around, and he would feel that, okay, my time is getting wasted here. So this is something which is documented at every step of that operational process and reviewed by the KPI managers here. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the staff to patient ratio. If you don't have enough staff to fulfill a particular patient or my customer, then I would really not make sense to that customer for him to revisit me. Thirdly, I'll talk about something which we had in our in the hospital where I worked. It was called a sparkle matrix. What do you mean by this? This is a matrix to measure how clean, how neat, how tidy, how does the hospital look to the customer. Obviously, nobody likes to go to a hospital, but when I step into a hospital, I should feel comfortable. The basic feel, which you get of often that alcohol smell which is floating around the hospital should not be there. So that's the feel that they want to give to the customer, so that they're comfortable to and not apprehensive to step into my unit. uh, Secondly, let me talk about the other industry, the manufacturing industry. It's very surprising how this whole industry works. We are talking about bank financing for each of the operation side of this business. So the bank line basically tries to support the import side, the fulfillment side, the export side, and till the point I get the money from the customer. So KPIs are actually tagged for each level of operation for these pointers which we have here. So there are this, I would say this is like a kind of a parallel KPI which the industry thrives on. Firstly, doing your activities in a particular time constraint manner would help you to produce the goods and ship it to the customer on a timely basis. Secondly, if you're doing it within your KPI or better than that, you end up saving finance cost. So this is how these are. So we are talking about parallel KPIs which operate and which make the entity more efficient. So these are the two examples, just which I wanted to brush upon how the industries are actually evolving from old matrices to the new ones. I'll hand it over to Janet to have her closing comments, basically.
Okay, great. Thanks, Navin. Thanks for reiterating the need for lifetime value with so much sparkle and so much passion, right? At the end of it, I know we're all here talking about new age and possibly some of you already doing it. What's up in the future? I don't think even Nostradamus right now can predict it accurately and completely, because look at our world, look at how rapidly it's evolving. Just look at the last 3 years itself. No month feels like the same, forget the year. So given that you're not going to be able to predict the absolute requirements on future skills, nor are you able to say this is how performance management will be. But that doesn't mean I won't give you insights. I will still leave you with 3 research-based insights on some predictions of the immediate future of performance management. And it's to tie up everything that we've also talked about. 1, goals need to be personal. You'll start having more personal goals, and you'll have more contextual and empathetic goals. So what does that mean? People nowadays, especially, and I know all of you are aware of the Great Resignation, they want to feel aligned to a bigger cause. They want to know what is the purpose of what they're doing. They want to see how what they're doing is connected to a larger cause. And people are leaving if they don't see that. And a lot of young people are leaving because of that. More empathetic performance goals, like how much time have you focused outside of work? What kind of initiatives have you taken for your own well-being is going to be important if we want to attract and retain talent in the coming future. The second insight is that there's going to be a lot more and specific focus on team goals as well as cross-collaboration project goals. We all work in such hybrid, distributed environments. I'm pretty sure I speak on behalf of most of us here, that we're very often driving goals across the board. It's not just my function, right? Or just my business. You're doing so many projects, and that is the way to go ahead, right? Because it's the diversity of thinking that adds the lifetime value that Navin's talking about. But are we measuring it? It's not there as strong as it needs to be currently, right? So how do you measure team success? How do you measure cross-collaboration? Because remember, we also talked about how companies are working with each other as well. So how do you factor that all into the performance management? Because the moment it comes in, then you know it's that critical. It's part of your DNA, right? The third one, which is very, very interesting, is that managers will not be managing performance. And how is this going to happen? This is going to happen because of the advancement of technology. It's already happening. Employees owning up to their daily performance a lot more, feeling that empowerment and that purpose and owning up to it. More continuous feedback, automated feedback, 360, transparency. You don't have to wait and wait for one person, your manager, to come to you and tell you how it went. Your manager is also aware all the time. So then what does the manager do? The evolving role of the manager will be, how do I coach my employees? How do I get them to discover their potential? How do I take care of their career development and progression? Right? So that's what's going to be the evolving role of the managers. And I know that some companies have already started that journey. So have we at Aster with the digitization and inclusion of personal goals. It's an exciting journey for all of us. The one thing, though, that will stay constant through all of this will be people. People at the core of it. right? So whether it's our customers, our patients, our people, our stakeholders, what are we working for or who are we working with? It's people. So that is one focus that we need to keep, and while we embrace everything else that's new. So thank you again on behalf of Navin, Gauri, and myself. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can see a question in the section. Bharti, do you want me to say it, or would you go for it?
Whatever is convenient for you. I mean.
Okay, great. I'm going to take it up then. In the case of new digital age with the presence of digital assets, how is it important to synchronize business modules to effectively ensure profitability at the end of the day? Can I request Navin to answer this question, please?
Yes, definitely. So now we are talking about digital assets. Before we were talking about a lot of intangible assets, tangible assets, may it be your property and those kind of stuff. So digital assets play a very important role in our lives now. We are talking about Bitcoin. We are talking about cryptocurrency. It's very important for us to first of all, I would say that you need to monitor what is happening around with the Bitcoin currency. Of course, some of us are in favor, some of us are not in favor of that particular stream. As a finance guy, I would always be conservative or apprehensive, but I would say that we need to be keen and we need to be alert on what is happening, rather than jumping into the conclusion, okay, and making a very hasty decision. That's what I would say. Let's be a bit alert, let's be a bit keen, and see how the whole fundamental moves ahead. How are we adapting towards it?
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is for Gauri, and I'm going to chip in after you. Talking about personalization and approaching and targeting customers for their value proposition, how is the element of transparency in dealings and customer satisfaction in order to build up credibility in the business? I guess like the importance of transparency when we're dealing with customers, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, it's very, very critical, especially in the digital age, because people going and voicing out in the social media, right, in the Twitter, right. If we are not transparent, customers are not going to leave you. Right? They know where to go. They know how to get the attention. They know how to get the work done, right? Now, in today's world, customer is rich, customer is strong enough, even to talk to the Prime Minister of India, or even to talk to the President of US, right? So technology has removed all the barriers. Anybody can reach anybody, right? But this is a good sign. It's a good sign both for the organization as well as the customers, right? I think to answer your question, I think that's as simple as that, Janet, right? It's important. It's very, very important. Otherwise, customers will not leave you.
Because it's amazing, Gauri, how aware and how much more knowledgeable people are right nowadays. Doctors say that we have way too many Google doctors amongst us, right? So people are aware. It's no longer, don't tell me something, it's okay. People need to know. If you don't tell them, they'll get to know. And I just want to add at this angle of example in the healthcare industry where some of our biggest aha moments have been when we have been extremely transparent in a tough situation or in a situation which was a problem area. So you're able to stand up and say, we didn't commit to this. We could have done better. This is what we're going to do going forward. Right. So a lot of our aha moments with our customers also come from that absolute transparency, because that transparency builds trust and trust builds credibility. So yes, thank you. Thank you again, Bharti, Sagar, and BizzTalk. I don't see any more questions for us.
Thank you so much, Janet, for moderating the session so beautifully. Thank you so much, Navin, and thank you, Gauri, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us yet again. We'll let you know if we have any more questions, but I'll see you in the next session now. And as always, it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure having you, and we're looking forward to many more, discussions like this.